Adult content warning. This video contains mature themes and depictions intended for adult audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. Chapter 01. Dean New Life. Dean is a young man who has continually struggled in life. Nothing seems to go his way, as his mother died a few years ago, leaving him with no one to call family. He has since been working a dead-end gas station job and just a few days ago, got fired. He now stands in his apartment, holding a rope in his hands. What is the point? No one loves me, I'm still a virgin at 24 and I can't even hold a damn job. He thought miserably. Just as he was about to do something he might regret, he heard an audible ding before a pink and blue screen appeared in front of him. Congratulations! You have been selected by the universe to be the beta tester of our new program called Common Sense Manipulation System. You have been chosen because of your miserable life and virgin status. But do not worry, young man. With this system, you can finally become someone worth a damn. Fame, money, beautiful women, the possibilities are endless. Chapter 1. Begin. Dean stood in his small, cramped one-bedroom apartment with a solemn look on his face. Nothing seemed to go his way in life, yet he felt he had done nothing to deserve this treatment. He had been rejected by any and all girls he ever tried to pursue, leaving him to question if love was even real. But it was more than just being a virgin loser. He couldn't hold a job either. Just recently he got fired from the only job he was able to find work at, a rundown gas station. "You bring the mood down wherever I put you, Dean," his asshole of a manager said. "It's just bad for business." Yet even worse than the aforementioned events, his mother, the only person he could call family, died just yesterday. Why do I even try? Dean thought to himself with pity. Everything I do ends in failure, and the only person who believed in me is dead. I don't even deserve to live. Before he could finish that sentence, a loud ding could be heard as a pink screen with a blue outline appeared in his vision. As his eyes lay on the screen, an alluring female voice sounded out. "Congratulations. You have been selected by the universe to be the beta tester of our new program called Common Sense Manipulation System. You have been chosen because of your miserable life and virgin status. But do not worry, young man. With this system, you can finally become someone worth a damn. Fame, money, beautiful women, the possibilities are endless." Am I hallucinating? Dean thought, dumbfounded. He waved his hand at the screen, but it simply passed through. However, it abruptly changed and the female voice sounded out again. "No, dumbass, you aren't hallucinating, and stop touching me." Startled, Dean yanked his hand back and dropped the rope in his other. He wasn't sure if what he was seeing was real, but he definitely just heard a female voice. "Can you hear my thoughts?" he asked out loud. "Yes, dumbass. I'm an envoy of the universe. Something like reading thoughts is natural for a being of my status. Now that you have been selected for our new program, don't you want to hear about the details?" Still skeptical, Dean decided it wouldn't hurt to hear the voice out before ending it. "Well, finally you have come to your senses. The Common Sense Manipulation System, or for short, is exactly as it sounds. You can manipulate the common sense of others." "That sounds hard to believe," Dean said, still not convinced of his own sanity. You know what, fine. Walk downstairs to the desk clerk and test things out. There is no way you won't believe me after," the voice said with arrogant confidence. With a scoff, Dean walked out of his apartment and down a few flights of stairs. He lived on the 3rd floor, but this shitty apartment complex didn't even have an elevator, causing him to climb up and down stairs more often than he'd like. He entered the lobby and laid eyes upon the desk clerk. She was a young woman with silver hair and, best of all, large breasts. They seemed to be trying to escape her low-cut t-shirt, causing Dean to get a little aroused at the sight. Currently, she was sitting cross-legged looking at her phone. A short black skirt and pantyhose adorned her slim legs, sending all kinds of signals to Dean's virgin mind. "Well, what do I do now?" Dean asked tentatively. "Think of an order. Or maybe something to change the way she thinks. Like I said before, you can control someone's common sense. The sky is the limit." The voice spoke. Thinking deeply, Dean wanted to make it something obvious but also useful. He couldn't even begin to think of all the possible uses for such an ability, but wanted something that could turn his loser life around. Coming to a conclusion, Dean thought to himself, "It is common sense for the woman in front of me to show me her boobs whenever I ask." Fool. The voice sounded out again. You had the chance to change her common sense in any way, and you thought of that. You could have said something like, "You will obey my every command," or, "You will now fall in love with me." A little confused, Dean asked, "Don't I still have the system? Why can't I just change her common sense again?" "God, I can't stand this dumbass. Why did I get selected for this damn job?" The voice said in frustration. "All right, listen, I gave you one freebie to test out the system. Normally you have to earn points to use its abilities, and even then you can't change someone's common sense completely until the later stages. The chance I gave you just now had the ability to entirely rewrite someone's brain, but all you used it for was to see her breasts." Realizing his mistake, Dean suddenly felt very regretful about his love for boobs. But then came to notice he still didn't even know if this system actually worked. "Okay, lady, shut up now. Time to see if you are really what you say you are," he said rudely as he walked up to the clerk's desk. As he arrived in front of the desk, the gorgeous, big-breasted beauty looked up from her cellular device with annoyance as she laid eyes on Dean. "Can I help you?" she said with all the attitude in the world. Getting a little angry at the way she spoke to him, Dean quickly thought about testing the system before he had a concerning thought. What if it doesn't work? Then I will have just sexually harassed this woman. Actually, now that I think about it, I was gonna end it all anyway. If this doesn't work, then I'll just do that," he concluded. Mustering up what little courage he had left in his loser mind, he asked unconvincingly, "Can I please see your boobs?" However, much to Dean's disbelief, the young woman simply rolled her eyes and unbuttoned her tight shirt, letting her massive pale jugs fall out, no longer contained in their cotton prison. An audible gulp could be heard from Dean as he laid eyes upon her juicy melons. It was the first time in his life he had seen a woman's tits through his own eyes and not on a screen. And boy, was it amazing. Her pointy nipples were a bright pink, and her breasts sat well, not sagging in any way due to the young woman's age and vitality. They were round and bouncing, causing Dean to wish he could just bury his head in all their glory. "It actually works!" he shouted internally, anticipating all the wonderful things he could accomplish with this power. As Dean stared at the clerk's breasts in awe, she simply sat there looking at her phone, completely uninterested in this insignificant tenant. He was just about to say something to her when he was interrupted. Suddenly, he heard the female voice from before speaking. "See? I told you this is real. You aren't hallucinating in any way, shape, or form. Now, are you going to continue staring at this woman's boobs, or are you going to hear me out?" The voice scoffed, ready to start her duties. I... Dean could barely form words as his eyes lay glued to the flesh bags hanging from the silver-haired woman's chest. He truly and dearly loved boobs, but ultimately shook his head to clear his mind. Staring at boobs all day, much to his displeasure, would get him nowhere. Okay, I'll hear you out," he said to the voice in his head. "Thank you, ma'am," Dean said to the women before scurrying away to the stairs, not wanting to waste another minute of his time. After climbing up the few flights and entering his apartment, he sat on his single-sized bed and spoke aloud. "So, tell me about this, system." Finally, the voice said exasperatedly. "The work's based on points. The more you change one's common sense, the more points the change will cost. You earn points by completing achievements. These range from anything like getting your first blowjob to becoming a millionaire. There are 1,000 possible achievements, and, upon completion, you will have full control over everyone in the world's common sense." Dumbfounded. That was the only word to describe how Dean felt right now. He couldn't even imagine what miracles would be possible by having the ability to change the world's common sense. But he knew that something like this was the motivation he needed to get his life on track. With anticipation visible in his expression, Dean asked, How many points do I have?" The voice sounded before another screen appeared in his view. "Dean Fool, age 24, Money, 1428. Dollar. Bodies, 0. Minds. Altered, 1. Haha. The female voice laughed. So pitiful. 24 years of life and all you have to show is $1,400. No bitches, no money, and definitely no brain. You have to try to be this pathetic. Fool. Getting annoyed by the voice's constant verbal abuse, Dean shouted in outrage. Are you going just continue insulting me? Or are you going to tell me how to use this damn thing? Wait, and why is my last name Fool? Geez, don't get your panties in a bunch. I will change my opinion of you and your name when you show me some worth. So, to gauge your ability, think deeply about a prompt you wish to use for manipulation. If you are able to afford it, you will hear a ding. If not, you won't hear anything. Once you hear the ding, it means the change took place, so don't try things out all willy-nilly as you can't go back. Upon hearing this, Dean suddenly began thinking of ways to change the silver-haired beauty's common sense again. He tried things like making her fall in love with him as the voice said, but didn't hear anything. After attempting things like sex and affection, he still didn't find any success and decided to keep it simple. It is normal for the woman whose boobs I just saw to kiss me on the lips every time she greets me. Much to his satisfaction, he heard a sharp ding, signaling the order's establishment. Excited, he quickly took a look at his status to find his point counter. Getting a good feel for the ability's cost was important after all. Manipulation points, 37. That took 63 points to use? Dean thought with a frown. I better get a lot of points for these achievements, otherwise I'm afraid I will have to resort to drastic measures, like actually attempting to get a girlfriend. This dumbass. That was actually not a bad use of your first actual attempt at manipulation. Now, are you going to try it out again? With a giddy smile on his face and ignoring the voice's rude comments, Dean hurried downstairs. If this worked, he would finally have his first kiss. Practically leaping down the flights of stairs, Dean appeared again in the lobby and spotted the big-breasted beauty. She still sat at her desk, eyes glued to her phone. This time, however, she was chewing some gum. The rhythmic smacking of her lips could be heard throughout the room. Dean, upon seeing her, attempted to calm his racing heart before proceeding. So pathetic, the feminine voice said with disdain. Ignoring it, Dean walked up to the desk with newfound confidence and said, "Hello there." Looking up from her phone with loathing, the clerk suddenly stood up and released a sigh. She hated this damn job. It was just so boring, and every disgusting man living here always molested her with their eyes. However, even as much as she hated it, she leaned over the desk to meet Dean's lips. Dean, shocked to see his ability work again, suddenly lurched forward, eager to meet the woman's lips. Their lips met, causing a semi-chub to appear in Dean's pants. The clerk's lips were full and luscious, completely covering Dean's with their smooch. The sweet taste of bubblegum entered Dean's sense of taste, making him sincerely consider buying some in bulk. The kiss was suddenly cut short as the woman broke away, sitting back in her chair with exaggerated irritation. Before he could ask why she broke the kiss off, another ding sounded when a blue and pink screen appeared in front of him. Achievement earned. First kiss. Kiss someone for the first time in your life. 200 points have been added to your status. This is, Dean thought with appreciation. 200 more points. If only 63 allowed me to kiss this beauty, what could over 200 do? Suddenly, a pink and blue screen appeared in his vision, breaking Dean out of his thoughts. Quest initiated. Lose your virginity by the end of the week. Upon completion, receive 1,000 manipulation points. Upon failure, lose access to the common sense manipulation system. What the fuck is this? Dean screamed in his mind. The voice didn't say anything about quests. Oh, relax, dumbass, the voice replied. This is just a protocol put in place so you don't get too complacent. Can't have you just sitting around not trying to complete all the system's achievements now, can we? But, Dean tried to say, but stopped. He was just trying to end his life a few moments ago, but this system gave him purpose. I shouldn't act too entitled. I mean, I was given this system for free after all. That's the spirit, dumbass. You should feel indebted to the universe for their charity. Now, are you just going to stand there looking stupid, or are you going to attempt some more manipulation? Asked the feminine voice with enthusiasm. Noticing his surroundings, he saw the woman clerk glaring at him, wondering what the hell he could possibly want. Upon seeing this, Dean quickly retreated to the staircase to contemplate his situation. Okay, so I have to seduce her by the end of the week. That shouldn't be too hard considering I have this system, but I need more points if I want to attempt any kind of sex. Now how should I manipulate her next? Dean thought with an ill-intended grin. He began brainstorming ideas on what to do next. He couldn't just outright manipulate her into having sex with him, as it would cost too many points. But he also had to slowly guide her in that direction, using as little amount of points as possible. With something like outright sex impossible right now, he had to get creative. After discarding some ideas and storing others in his mind for later, Dean came up with something he thought was very clever. The woman whom I just saw will now experience great pleasure whenever we kiss. The satisfying ding resounded in his mind, prompting a goofy smile to cross his face. Not bad for a dumbass. The resentful voice spoke with some surprise. Dean once again pulled up his status to inspect his points. Dean Fool, age 24, manipulation points 13, money $1,428, bodies 0, minds altered 1. That cost me 224 points? Dean thought with frustration. Whatever. I'm sure I can at least complete some achievement using this. Also, that quest completion counter is new. Taking a deep breath, he spoke out loud, addressing the feminine voice in his head. What should I call you? I can't just keep referring to you as well. You. The voice stayed silent for a moment before speaking. My true name is much too complex for your fool human mind to comprehend, but I suppose you can call me Lisa. Lisa, Dean thought. What a pretty name. Flattery will get you nowhere. Now go humor me with your attempts at seduction, Lisa said briefly. As you wish, oh mighty Lisa, Dean said in a teasing tone. After finishing up with his intermission, Dean went back out into the lobby to try his luck at seducing this silver-haired woman. This time, she was currently speaking with some tenant, another woman to be precise. The girl was short and had long blonde hair. Her body was lean and she was wearing athletic shorts and a sports bra. Her breasts weren't anything out of the ordinary, just what appeared to be a B-cup. Not bad, Dean thought, but I like girls with a bigger chest. He was a boob guy after all. He patiently waited behind the girl for her to finish the conversation she was having with the clerk. However, he didn't have to wait long because as soon as the clerk looked at him, she ended the conversation with the blonde woman and sent her away. Dean couldn't wait any longer and greeted the clerk quickly. Hello again. The silver-haired woman looked at him questioningly before getting up and leaning in for a kiss. Why does this guy keep showing up just to look at me? It's really annoying and I have to greet him every time, the woman questioned in her mind. Upon touching her lips again, Dean suddenly felt relief. He felt as though if he could taste these lips for the rest of his life, he would die a happy man. Unbeknownst to him, the woman was having other thoughts. The big-breasted beauty felt a tingle in her panties, causing her face to show some confusion. Did this weirdo just turn me on? She thought as she felt her body temperature rising and her breathing become ragged. She pulled away with some reluctance. Some part of her still wanted to continue kissing the young man, but the other part told her it would be rude to greet him for that long. It's just a simple greeting, so why am I so hot and bothered? She thought. I might find him attractive. Maybe? That must be the reason. Noticing her flustered expression, Dean couldn't help but break into a smile. Looks like it worked. I don't have any experience with women, but I'm willing to bet she feels quite good right now. However, what the woman said next caused Dean's jaw to drop. Are you free tomorrow? I have the day off and was wondering if you'd like to go get some coffee? Did she just ask me out? Dean thought in disbelief. Never in his 24 years of life has a woman showed interest in him, no matter what he did. Yet just after a couple of kisses, this big-breasted, silver-haired beauty actually asked him out. "I think I'm going to be the one falling in love at this rate," he thought with glee. Dean stammered out before composing himself. "I would love to, sure. What time would work best for you?" he asked while awkwardly scratching the back of his head. "He's kind of cute," the silver-haired woman thought, noticing his flustered expression. "How does 9 a.m. sound?" That works. See you then," Dean said before fleeing back to his apartment. When he arrived at his safe haven, he laid back on his bed, still not fully believing in the events that just took place. "A girl just asked me out," he thought ecstatically. "You are so damn pathetic," Lisa said scornfully. "You can so brazenly ask to see a woman's tits but run away like a coward when they ask for a simple coffee date. Fool." A bit red in the face, Dean retorted, I just didn't expect such a reaction. If I knew she was going to ask me out, I wouldn't have been so surprised." "Yeah, right, fool. Unlike you, I'm not stupid enough to believe something like that." Frowning and dismissing Lisa's verbal attacks, Dean began planning what to do for his upcoming date. "Unfortunately, I don't have enough manipulation points to help me initiate sex, so I'm going to have to place my hopes on kisses." The following morning, Dean stood in front of the mirror in his bathroom. "This is the best I've got," he said out loud. "Well, it looks like shit. Without any kind of manipulation, I'm sure women would run away at the sight of you." Lisa spoke without regard for Dean's feelings. He was currently wearing a purple button-up shirt with cuffed sleeves and his best pair of jeans. His hair was slicked back in an amateurish attempt at looking nice, and he had just shaved his face clean. "But my mom always said I looked nice when I wore this," he thought, discouraged by Lisa's comments. "Oh, cheer up, fool, you'll bring the mood down. That's why you were given this system in the first place, so you would stop being such a loser," Lisa said, trying to get Dean's mind out of the dumps. Upon hearing her words, Dean put his sad thoughts to the side and walked out of his apartment, making his way downstairs. When he arrived, his eyes spotted the most gorgeous sight he had ever seen in his life. The silver-haired woman was waiting by the exit of the complex with her arms crossed, tapping her fingers rhythmically against them. She was wearing a white, unassuming sundress, her plump bosom producing a mountain on her chest. Her silver hair was tied in a ponytail, leaving her perfect facial features open for the world to see. "There is no way a woman like that is going on a date with me," Dean thought with disbelief. "Stop gawking and go greet her, fool," Lisa reminded. Building up what little courage he had, Dean walked into the lobby and up to the stunning young woman. Good afternoon," he said awkwardly. Smiling when she spotted him, the big-breasted beauty moved in to lock lips with the young man. Closing his eyes to savor their wonderful taste, Dean almost lost himself to their allure but righted himself as she pulled away. "Shall we get going?" she asked with a look of arousal. "Why do I feel so good whenever we kiss?" Dean replied with a smile and said, "Absolutely. You had a place in mind, right?" "Yes, I did. But before that, I didn't catch your name. I'm Jenny, by the way," the silver-haired woman said. Jenny. Dean thought, almost in a trance, before shaking his head and saying, "My name's Dean. Nice to, meet you, Jenny." About 10 minutes later, Jenny and Dean arrived at their destination. A local coffee shop situated on a street corner stood in front of them. The walk there wasn't eventful, as they mostly walked in silence and made short comments about their surroundings. "Well, don't just stand there, fool. Open the door for her," Lisa instructed. Remembering his manners, Dean stepped forward and opened the door as he gestured to Jenny. "After you." "Thank you," Jenny said. She entered the building, followed by Dean. The coffee shop was mostly empty, as most people were still at work, leaving Jenny and Dean with a wide selection of available seats. Dean quickly rushed to the nearest table and sat down. It was a small table with 2 seats facing each other. He pulled out a chair and allowed Jenny to sit in it before sitting down on his own, opposite to her. While looking through the menu, Jenny suddenly asked a question. So, what do you do for work, Dean? A little startled by the question, Dean took a moment to debate telling the truth and ultimately decided to come clean. I was, recently fired. I had a job at a gas station, but my manager and I didn't get along very well, so he ended up firing me. I am currently in search of a new job, hopefully one with a better supervisor, he replied. That's too bad, Jenny said with a frown. I hope it works out for you. I know how hard job searching can be. It took me forever just to get the desk clerk job back at the complex. After some more small talk and ordering their coffee, Dean had a question for Jenny. I'm sorry if this is a little too soon, but why did you ask me out? It was Jenny's turn to look a little embarrassed as she thought about the reason she asked him out. I can't tell him I get turned on during our greetings. That would just be wrong. I guess. Shifting awkwardly, she said, I found you cute. Dean sat there, struggling to not break into a song and cheering out as loud as he could. A woman just said that she found him attractive. Even if she was influenced by the common sensibility, it still marked the turning point in Dean's miserable virgin life. Calming himself down, Dean cleared his throat before complimenting. I find you cute too. Jenny grimaced a bit at his comment. While it was somewhat true she found him cute, she still didn't like him much. The only reason she asked him out was because, somehow, she became extremely turned on whenever they greeted each other. I still don't know what the cause is, but I've never felt anything like that before. After exchanging some more awkward conversations, the date came to an end as they finished their coffee. This prompted Dean and Jenny to get up and leave the coffee shop and begin the walk back to the complex. However, as they were on their way back, Dean realized something. Wait, do you live in the apartment complex? Sighing, Jenny answered. Yes, I do. I was reluctant to work there, but it was the only job I could get. It's very weird working in the same building you live in, especially during instances like this, she said while blushing. Whew, I thought she was walking me home for a second there. That would have been bad, but this changes things. Maybe I can really lose my virginity after all, thought Dean. As they approached the complex, Jenny sped up her pace a little. I regret doing this. He is just so awkward it's hard to even talk. I just want to get out of this outfit and lie down. Maybe I was just imagining my arousal, she thought with regret. Dean, upon seeing her speed up and reach for the door without letting him open it first, frowned and thought, did I do something wrong? Yes, fool. Your conversation skills are horrible, not to mention your mannerisms are awkward and lack confidence. Only a mentally disabled woman would be comfortable around you. Lisa spat out. Am I really that unlikable? Dean thought with a downtrodden expression as he followed Jenny to her room. Suddenly, Jenny turned and spoke accusingly. Why are you still following me? I feel like I've made it clear our date is over. Can't you take a hint? Stunned at her outburst, Dean's expression turned into a scowl as he spoke. I was just trying to be polite and walk you back to your room. Isn't that what guys do on dates? Forgive me for trying to show some damn manners. Jenny's expression became one of realization as it dawned on her that perhaps Dean wasn't just some creep. But that didn't change her mind as she began to accuse him again. Suddenly, her words were cut off as a pair of lips smushed against hers, sending waves of pleasure all throughout her body. Dean wrapped his arms around her and pulled her close, determined to not let this moment go to waste. I'm taking a huge gamble here, but I need something to go my way, he thought as he attempted to use some tongue. Jenny resisted at first, still holding a dislike for Dean, but as she felt herself become wet, she threw caution to the wind and returned his embrace. The pair smacked their lips together and pulled each other closer. Each time Dean's tongue brushed against hers, Jenny let out soft moans. With their bodies intertwined, Jenny couldn't help but think, this is the feeling from before. He is so good at kissing. I feel like I'm going to... After making out for a few seconds, Dean felt Jenny's body tense up and convulse before suddenly falling limp as she let out an audible moan. Ah. Looking down at the limp woman in his arms, Dean noticed something peculiar. Running down Jenny's legs was a clear liquid, signaling a climax from extreme pleasure. I didn't know it would be this strong, he thought with some reverence towards this ability. Before he could do anything, though, Jenny came to, picking herself up and out of Dean's grasp. She looked at Dean with some lust and hesitation, before ultimately speaking. Thank you for walking me back. I can walk alone from here. Smiling at her words, Dean nodded and said his goodbyes, walking confidently back to his apartment. As he was walking back, a pink and blue screen appeared before him. Achievement earned, first date. Go on a date with someone for the first time. 200 points have been added to your status. Achievement earned, first orgasm. Make someone orgasm. 250 points have been added to your status. Upon reading the screens, Dean stopped dead in his tracks. Joy, pure joy was the best way to describe what this young virgin man was feeling. 450 more manipulation points. I can do so much with that. Where do I even start? He cheered out loud. Hey fool, you aren't in your room right now, you are in a hallway. Wait till you get back to your apartment before celebrating. God, I can't stand this job. With Lisa ruining his moment, Dean made his way back to his door with a shameful expression and entered the shitty apartment. Getting undressed and flopping onto his tiny bed, Dean opened his status. Dean Fool, age 24, manipulation points, 463, money, $1,414, minds altered, 1, 463 points. What should I use them for? He pondered. I still have another 6 days to lose my virginity, so I'm not too pressed for time right now. But I do need to order something that will get me more achievements. Hey Lisa, Dean said aloud, can I see what achievements I can unlock? No, not right now. You will eventually unlock them, but for now, you just have to stumble blindly. Fool. She spoke. I don't know how that makes me a fool, but okay, Dean thought with contempt. So I don't know what I can unlock. What to do? He suddenly remembered some of the things Lisa said and the actions Jenny took against him. She felt uncomfortable around me. Lisa, is it possible to change the way a person perceives me? He asked. I already told you the sky is the limit with the common sensibility, fool. As long as you have enough points, any kind of manipulation is possible. Confirming his decision, Dean made his next change. The woman, Jenny from before, will always feel completely at ease around me and not feel uncomfortable with my presence in any way. A grin appeared on his face as heard the ding of success, prompting Dean to let out a chuckle. This is just too easy. Feel free to leave suggestions on what you'd like to see in the comments. Anything from a character to explicit scenes. You name it, and I will consider adding it. Also, please leave a review. It helps me out a lot and motivates me to continue writing. WhySoEvil creators' thoughts? Upon hearing the ding of success, Dean checked on his manipulation point counter. Manipulation points, 163. 300 points, huh? I think that was a worthwhile investment. I won't have to worry Abel scaring her off now, thought Dean. I still have leftover points, unlike last time. Dean took a few moments to think up ideas for his remaining points, but in the end, he decided to save them for now. I'm sure I'll think of something later. No need to get too greedy right now. Early the next day, Dean sat up on his bed with a look of irritation evident on his face. Rent was due yesterday, so now I'm down to only $214. He stated out loud upon checking his bank balance. Looks like you need a job, fool. Or next thing you know, you're gonna be on the side of the street fucking cracked out homeless women for points, said Lisa with a mocking tone. Dean's expression darkened upon hearing this. He really didn't want to be homeless. As much as he hated his cramped apartment, at least it had a roof and 4 walls. Not to mention he didn't want to catch some kind of STD from a crack whore. All right, he spoke with newfound determination. I'm gonna fuck this girl even if it's the last thing I do. This fool. Lisa facepalmed at Dean's vigor. After his short motivational speech, Dean got up and headed for the lobby. He was dressed casually today, only wearing some loose shorts and a tank top, not expecting to go out anywhere. Upon his arrival in the lobby, Dean frowned when he didn't spot Samantha sitting at her usual clerical desk. Maybe she is on break, he thought with some hope. No fool. She was probably scared by the shit you pulled yesterday, most likely called in sick to avoid you. Lisa theorized. Damn. Hopefully she won't avoid me for too long or I don't know what I'm going to do. But just as he finished that thought, the blonde woman from the other day walked in from outside. Once again, she was clad in workout clothes, sweat still dripping off her forehead. Wait, who says I can only pursue Samantha? If she is going to avoid me, I can always try for someone else. He thought, gazing at the blonde's fit figure. I only have 163 points, so it can't be anything drastic, but perhaps I can guide this blonde in a different way, Dean thought with anticipation. The blonde woman in front of me will have full trust in me for matters relating to physical fitness. Immediately after that thought, Dean heard the ding of completion. Smiling, he checked on his point status. Manipulation points 1. Wow, that was lucky. Hey Lisa. What do you want, fool? Lisa said with disdain. I don't think there was any way in hell I should have been able to change her mind in that way for just over 160 points. Did I level up or something? He asked. With a long sigh, Lisa answered. There are no levels to this ability. The cost to change someone's common sense varies from person to person, so if you use something familiar to a person per se, it will cost less. This isn't always the case, but it is for that blonde you just manipulated. I'm surprised you realized. Fool. With this newfound information, Dean patted himself on the back. I can't believe I thought of something like that. You can't call me a fool for much longer, Lisa. He thought as he walked up to the blonde woman walking back to her apartment. Excuse me, he blurted out. The woman turned around with an expression of amusement upon spotting Dean. She found it hilarious that this loser was about to hit on her. Can I help you? She asked with a tantalizing smile. After confirming his words one last time, Dean spoke. I couldn't help but notice you just got done working out. Looks like you did some running, correct? I'm actually quite knowledgeable in, cool-down stretches, and was wondering if you'd like some help, he asked without much confidence. Realization crossed the blonde woman's face before a sigh of appreciation escaped her mouth. Oh my God, you have no idea how long I've been searching for someone like you. Yes, I just got finished with a 10 kilometers run, 100 sit-ups, squats, and push-ups, and have been in dire need of proper cool-down techniques. Dean stood stunned for a moment. There is no way that just worked, he thought before speaking again. Well, that's wonderful. Do you mind if we do them in your apartment? Mine is a little cramped. Mine is small too, but I don't mind. Let's go, the blonde woman said with eagerness as she began heading for the stairwell. When they were going up the many flights, the blonde woman was climbing ahead of him, giving Dean a full view of her rear end. It was jiggling and bouncing up and down with every step, causing Dean to become almost hypnotized. She didn't have a particularly large behind, but it appeared very toned due to her tough workout schedule. A routine like that was hard enough to cause someone's hair to fall out. Gulping and shaking his head, Dean looked down, trying not to fall prey to the woman's lovely cake. Focus, Dean. Hold your lust in. After enduring the ruthless torture that was walking behind a woman up the stairs, the blonde woman and Dean arrived at her apartment. Entering, Dean was surprised to see it was quite empty, or at least the living area was. The bedroom door was shut, leaving him to only fantasize about seeing a woman's room with his own eyes. Without any words, the blonde woman walked over to a cabinet and grabbed a couple of yoga mats, placing them on the floor in the center of the room. Shall we get started? She asked in a voice that made blood rush to Dean's member. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it interesting,